I have pretty much realized that everybody I work with falls into one of 5 very distinct sort of levels of wealth. You see, the problem is that most people will follow generic advice, right? That isn't actually designed or curated for the stage of wealth, the level of wealth that they're currently in. Most people just think that building wealth means just saving more into your bank account or investing more. But here's the truth. Each specific level, each specific one of those levels requires a completely different strategy to get you to the next. What works at level 1 might actually hold you back at like level 3. Now, I've guided hundreds of clients through these levels, and the people who sort of understand this framework move up exponentially faster. So in today's video, I'm going to break down all those 5 levels, helping you to diagnose kind of where you are today and give you actionable steps to reach each level next. Now, level 1, survival. This is really where you're just kind of living paycheck to paycheck with literally no cushion whatsoever. So your monthly income barely covers your essentials. You might be using credit cards or overdrafts just to kind of get by. And you've got this kind of, I guess, constant anxiety about unexpected expenses and whatever else. Here's what always surprises me and shocks me. 11.5 million UK adults have less than £100 in savings. That is crazy, isn't it? And 40% of people would struggle with a small emergency of, say, £300. Look, if you're in this space, you've got maybe less than 500 quid saved, or a £300 bill would cause you real hardship. Level 2. Well, level 2 is stability, right? Your bills are paid, but you've got no real kind of safety net. Your income covers all your expenditures with maybe a little bit left over at the end of every single month. You might own a car, have a mortgage, and sometimes be able to afford an occasional holiday. But this is the key bit. If that income stopped, you would be absolutely screwed within a month or two. Look, you might be living comfortably, but you're one crisis away from serious trouble. The reality here again is that 35% of UK adults have less than £1,000 saved, and 60% would struggle if they lost their job for even like 1 month. It's properly scary, right? If you're in this spot, you've maybe got, I don't know, 500 quid, 1,000, 3,000 pounds roughly saved, but you've probably got no insurances, no protection, no sort of like regular wealth building plan that you're setting up. You're just kind of stable. Just a quick one. I send out weekly emails with tactical wealth building strategies, stuff that I've learned over the last 15 years, specific stuff that doesn't necessarily always fit into the videos that I make. Links in the description if you want in. Level 3. Now this is where it starts getting a little bit more interesting, is security. This is where you're kind of protected, right, against life's curveballs. Your debts are under control or even eliminated, and you're investing or saving regularly towards a plan towards financial freedom. You could handle job loss, you could handle illness, or big one-off shocks to the system like major repairs or whatever it is without having to go into absolute crisis mode. Here's the thing with this level, only 14% of UK adults reach this level. But when you do, and I've seen this time and time again, your financial stress drops significantly. Look, as I said, after working with hundreds of clients, this is the level where I see people's entire relationship with money transform. If you're in this spot, you've probably got a lot of protection insurances in place, your consumer debts are cleared, or are being kind of paid down aggressively, and you're typically investing. A bit of a yardstick that I always use is that you're investing maybe, 10% or more of your income, and you're actively moving towards financial freedom. Now, here's where it gets crazy, right? Level 4 is where kind of, as I've said, everything changes. Out of interest, how many people out there, because I see this quite a lot, like where people plateau, how many people out there would actually want to take it beyond this, right? Take it beyond sort of stability and security, reaching levels 4 and 5. I'll explain what they are in a minute. But what I want to know is how many people are motivated to take it beyond. So what I want you to do is comment down below to say, yeah, like I want to reach those levels in 4 and 5. I'm not just happy being complacent. So maybe type in level 5 in the comments below. I'm talking about not just wanting, yeah, that'd be nice, but actually genuinely want it. So let's crack on. Level 4. Now this is freedom. This is where essentially your assets could cover your living costs indefinitely, pretty much. So generally speaking, what that might look like is that you'd have generally over 300,000 or £1 million invested. And that's quite a big gap, but in terms of the amount of passive income that would take to generate, that's the kind of portfolios that you'd be looking at. Work at this stage, obviously, would become optional. You do it because you kind of want to, not because you have to. Again, scary statistics. Only 6% of people reach this level before age 65. So at this level, the key thing is that money works harder for you than you do for it. You're here because you have generated, your investments have generated enough to pay for most of your lifestyle and bills forever. Level 5, abundance. Right. At this point, money is completely removed from your decisions, pretty much, right? Your net worth is probably 3 million quid or more. Your returns that you get on your money significantly exceed your spending, and you can support your family, you can give generously, and you can pursue whatever the hell you want to do with life within reason, right? Your wealth in this stage tends to compound faster than you can actually spend it, and your focus shifts to more, like I always see clients in this space, they kind of care about like legacy and impact and meaning and things like that, rather than just this arbitrary race for sustainability. Price tags become irrelevant for normal purchases like going to the supermarket and things like that. The top 1% threshold out of interest in the UK is £3.6 million worth of net worth. So at this level, your returns almost exceed most people's salaries entirely. Right. So you've just seen all 5 levels. You should probably know where you are by now on that list. But here's what I've noticed after 15 years of advising people. Most people just stop right there, right? They know their level, they know where they're at, they understand the framework, but they don't actually do anything about it. They don't do anything with that information. And that's because they're missing the most important part. Like I said, each level that you go through requires a completely different strategy. What works at level 1 won't get you to level 3. What works at level 3 won't get you to level 4. So what I want to do is break down exactly what I would suggest you do for each individual level. Again, no right or wrong answer with this sort of stuff, and everyone's situations is specific, but let's have a look at how we move through the levels and what I would do. So if you are at level 1, right now, your mission is super simple. Just stop the bleeding and build a small cash buffer. Here's what most people miss in this step, essentially. I had a client who was earning £2,000 a month, and they were spending about 1,500 quid a month in total. So basically what they had is something that I call their wealth building velocity, which is the difference between how much they earn and how much they spend. In that case was about 500 quid. So he was low earner, 2,000, but was only spending 1,500 quid on his life. So he had 500 quid a month to do something with. And at the same time, I have other clients who will be earning like £10,000 a month, but spending £9,500 a month. They have exactly the same velocity. They have exactly the same 500 quid a month. You see what I mean? In this point, it's not about salary. It's not about how much you earn. It's about what you keep. Look, Forget the fancy term of wealth velocity. It's just something that I use with all my clients. Here's what it actually means. If 100 quid comes in and 100 quid goes out, you're going nowhere. You're just on the hamster wheel, right? But if 100 quid comes in and only 90 quid goes out, that is a tenner in your pocket to get you out of level 1. So that is it. That is your wealth building velocity. In 15 years of doing this, this is the thing that has helped people kind of get stuck, that are stuck in that first tranche, get out of that. Figure out essentially what number you have and what ammunition you have to do something with. How much spare money do you have each month to save or invest? Okay, really important. Once you know that number and you've calculated your wealth velocity, then you know essentially whether you can you have to strip back on spending or try and increase your income. Either way, trying to pull two of those levers. Now, once you know that number, as I said, the next point of call is to build £1,000 buffer super fast. Not talking about some big emergency fund. I'm just talking about try to build a little bit of a cash buffer just so that you have some money in the bank straight away. Look, even if you're only putting away 250 quid a month or something, you can get there in 4 months, right? Keep that in instant access savings. Don't try and do anything smart. Don't try and be clever. You can probably still get about 4 or 5% on an instant access account at the moment at time of recording. Probably not in a couple of months, but Monzo, Chase, they're doing around that sort of level at the moment. So just find a good enough bank account. And what this does is it breaks the cycle of debt risk. It just gives you some money in the bank to fall back on. Small goals. So your 2026 targets. Try to make sure, of course, that you've got 0 payday loans. Try to make sure that you're not doing silly things like using your overdraft. Make sure that you're cutting down consumer debt. Make sure that you've got that £1,000 buffer in place and try to get to a point where your monthly budget is showing a surplus, a wealth building velocity. Okay, moving from level 2 to level 3. This is when things start to accelerate, really, I would say. Here's what the big thing that you need to do in this step to move to level 3 is to get protected. Also, eliminate your debt and start investing in saving with an actual goal. The very first thing is to calculate your emergency fund target. Okay. Now, again, in the previous one, it was like just build £1,000. That's just a cash buffer. That's not what I would call an emergency fund. So this is about getting a solid emergency fund. So add up all your monthly essentials, right? Rent, mortgage, bills, food, transport, whatever it is, the things that you need to live. Multiply that by around 3 to 6, and that's usually your target. Now, be sensible with this. If you have 3 children, a dependent spouse, and loads of outgoings, you want 6 months worth of security. If you're young and you haven't got any overheads and you're just kind of cracking on, then maybe you could go for 3 months. But whatever it is, set your target. Then what you want to do is automate your savings. Set up a standing order on payday for something like 5 to 10% of your income. Brilliant. Now, this next bit that I'm going to talk about at the bottom here, I cannot stress this enough, right? It's not sexy, it's not cool, but I promise you, this is the difference between getting to level 2 to level 3. I've seen it save families. Honestly, save it. I can't stress this enough. Save families from going broke. Get protected. It's not cool and sexy to be like, oh, my investments have gone up by 20, 30% this year. If you're 1 month or one event away from complete disaster, you're not big, you're not clever. This is big and it is clever. So things like life insurance. Typically, if you've got dependents or anyone that you'd want to be looked after if anything happened to you, you might want to do, for example, 10 times your annual income in life insurance if you've got people that would depend on you. Because, of course, they're not going to have that income anymore. That could be something like 10 to 30 quid a month if you're relatively young and healthy. Critical illness cover. If you get really sick and can't work for the rest of your life, if you have heart attack, cancer, stroke, that sort of thing. Again, you'd want to protect your debts, protect your ability to earn. That's 30, 60 quid a month, depending. Then a critical base one that I think everyone in this country should have, income protection. If you lose your job, yeah, look, you might have some, sick pay via work. Well done, you. But it's not going to last forever. And most is like a couple of weeks maximum, unless you work in the NHS or something like that, which actually they have like 6 months full pay, or whatever it might well be. Anyway, income protection. If you lose your job and you're not able to work through illness or injury, that will step in and typically pay a large portion of your monthly income. So that might be 40 to 80 quid a month. So realistically, between sort of 100 and 200 quid, you can completely secure everything you've got. I see so many people who say to me, I'm doing a great job, aren't I? I'm putting 500 quid a month away into this savings account or into my investment ISA. And I cannot tell you how many times I've sat down with them and said, right, well, let's have a look at the other things that are going on in your life. Then I notice that they haven't got any of that sorted. And what we immediately do of that 500 quid is take like 200 of it and spend it on protection. You still can invest the 300, but that 200 quid spent on protecting what you have, your income, your, everything around that is way more impactful than getting 10% from the stock market. Just a thought. So that is true financial security. Now, I know, this all sounds like a bit of a lot, right? But just think about it this way. You're probably spending all of that money on Netflix and Spotify anyway, right? Or your morning coffees. It's literally protecting your family's future with, less than a couple of takeaways a month. And then in this step, also, again, we want to eliminate consumer debt if we can. So having things like credit card balances, personal loans, just make sure that you're attacking those and trying to get rid of them. Once you hit that emergency fund buffer, what you could do if you've got existing debt that you're still paying off is that you could do a 50-50 split such strategy, right? So you've got your emergency buffer. And then what you could do is say like, right, okay, I'm going to take the money that I've got and put it 50% towards my debts and 50% towards savings and investments. Whatever, you get the point, right? After that, also, you want to start investing with a purpose. You want to redirect that sort of money into a goal or a pathway or a habit. So again, get your workplace pension sorted. Make sure you're grabbing your full employer match. It's literally free money. Open a stocks and shares ISA. Once you've got all your base, this is the things that you can start to look at. So I would look at a really simple stocks and shares ISA with a managed investment solution that is matched to the level of risk that you want, which just avoids any panic or any stress in the early stages of your journey. So it's a really, really handy little tool that you can have when you start to look into investing. Now, by the way, just out of interest, and I wasn't particularly planning on talking about it in this video, but I've actually got a great little tool. It's called the Savings Thermostat, and I'll throw up some image footage of it now. And it helps you understand exactly how much you need to be putting away to meet your goals. Really great little tool. I'll put a link to it in the description. It's completely free to use, so give it a crack. By the end of 2026, I want you to have all protection insurances that are active, that are suitable for you, consumer debt eliminated, and if you're saving circa 20% of your income plus, you are basically winning. Now, brilliant. If you hit those markers that we've just talked about there, you are genuinely in the top, 15% of UK adults. That is something that you could be incredibly proud of. If you're already there, right? If you're sitting at level 3 right now, what I want you to do is comment level 3 below. I just want to celebrate that because you have achieved something very, very real and a very, very impressive level of wealth. Level 3 is pretty good, right? Okay, moving from level 3 to level 4. Right, so this is what I would call your wealth acceleration, right? Your goal here is really to make your money work harder than you do and really accelerate that financial freedom. But before I get into how, let me tell you about why most people never really make this jump, right? They get to level 3 and they feel kind of secure for the first time in their lives. I see it all the time, right? They just coast. They think, right, job done. I'm kind of secure. It's easy from here out. Meanwhile, their mates or people around them who understand what I'm about to show you, well, they are like retiring at 45, right? While everyone else is stuck working until 67. So this is the next step where it really, really starts accelerating. And what I'm about to show you now is basically what separates them, okay? So what I want you to do is put as much as you can into accounts where you don't pay any tax or where the government incentivizes you to do so. So again, the key ones here, your pension. Try to aim for 15 to 20% of what you earn. Big numbers here, but this makes all the difference. And don't forget also, of course, with this, with your workplace pension, your employer chips in too. It's free money. Your ISA, you can put in £20,000 a year. So if you can sort of reach this level where you're putting in 20, 30K a year into your investments and pensions, I know it sounds like a lot, that is the critical turning point where you really start accelerating. So here is an absolute power stat just on that and why I think that's a really important level, that 20 to 30, because that's always what we try and aim for with clients. If they can get to this level, it's like a real tipping point. 25K a year invested at roughly 7% a year, which is kind of average returns, that will give you 1.4 million in 20 years. So if you think about it that way, by all the measures that we've spoken about, 1.4 million would put you right up there in terms of comfortability and income and all of those things. So if you can, for example, just really juice it out and save that sort of 20 to 30K level, that's when you kind of know you're right on that pathway to absolute winning in 20 years' time. When it comes to building real wealth, forget everything else, right? This constant investing into accounts where you don't pay tax is where people really start to go from 3 to 4. So invest consistently with a simple portfolio aligned to your level of risk. Set up monthly contributions. Don't try and time the market. It's time in the market is what matters. And most importantly, track your freedom number. I cannot tell you how many times people just aimlessly save without any real goal. Here's how it works. If you're wanting to spend £40,000 a year, your goal is £1 million in the bank. So every 100,000 you've got working for you would generally speaking be able to pay you about £4,000 a year in income. That is using the 4% rule. Okay. So that generally speaking is try to track your freedom number and absolutely understand where it is. Again, actually, I've got another brilliant little tool that can help you with this. Once you know your freedom number, so like 50 grand a year, 40 grand a year, whatever it is, again, I'll throw this up on the screen now. Just in the tool, punch in your date of birth and when you want to be financially free, and it'll tell you what's called your sort of retirement tracker number, and it will tell you exactly how much you need to be on each month, or whether you're on track or behind. Again, links in the description, completely free to use, essentially. But here is an interesting point where most people kind of mess this whole thing up, really. This is what separates the people who reach level 4 in like their 40s and those who get there in their 60s or whatever it might well be. Lifestyle inflation. Lifestyle inflation, it is such a killer. I see it with the people that I work with all the time. So, general rule of thumb, here's what I always say. If you get a raise, you need to try to save 50% of that raise. So you can spend the other 50, you can do whatever you want, but try to save 50% of that raise. So, for example, if your salary goes from 50 grand to 60 grand, live off of the fact that you're earning 55 grand and invest that extra 5 grand. I've watched that one single decision create 20-year differences in people's retirement plans and when they can reach financial freedom. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but I've worked hard for that raise and I deserve to enjoy it. And look, you're right, obviously, okay? But this is the question. This is the question you've got to ask yourself. Do you want to enjoy it for 2 years or retire 10, 20 years earlier? That is the real choice. Another thing as well is that you get used to it. It's not even that you're spending it, it's that you just get used to it. And you're like, well, actually 60 feels like 50 and there's no novelty there and it doesn't really make much difference. So that is the real choice. So what does success look like for this transition, right? Well, generally speaking, to go from 3 to 4, it would be like you've got a significant amount of money working for you, your net worth is growing faster than like your salary maybe, and you're on track to hit your annual expenses, 10 times your annual expenses or whatever it is. Now, level 4 to 5, I'll be honest, this applies to maybe 1 in 100 people watching this. But if you're there, or if you're heading that way in the next 5 to 10 years, everything works kind of differently here. So at this stage, your mission shifts from building wealth to preserving it and creating a legacy. So at this point, advanced things like tax optimization becomes absolutely critical. So you'd be looking at things like EIS, SEIS, VCTs, all of these really jazzy tax vehicles that give you lots more tax relief over and above your pensions, right? You can use things like pension carry forward for the previous 3 years allowance. This is all pretty complex stuff, and going into it in this video is way beyond the scope of what I wanted to talk about today. But this is where you would like establish family trusts. And really, to be honest with you, you'd start hiring specialist advisors and things like that. So yeah, you're going to start paying out lots more costs in advice and guidance that might cost you, I don't know, 5, 10 grand a year. But if it's saving you 50, 100K and growing your portfolio by that, trust me, it's well worth it. Sometimes my clients look at it very arbitrarily and it's like, yeah, my fees are X, but I give you X times 10 in terms of gross wealth. Anyway, at this stage also, wealth preservation matters more than growth, essentially. So in this stage, what you want to do is, if you're moving from 4 to 5, you might start to look to putting money in alternative investments. So again, a little bit more spicy: private equity, commodities, property. You're getting things like your generational wealth sorted out. You're getting the estate planning sorted, wills, trust, inheritance tax planning. Your focus, again, shifts from growing wealth to preserving it. And you start thinking about generational wealth. You start thinking about your children, your grandchildren, things like junior ISAs for your kids, £9,000 a year per child, or family trusts, as I've mentioned. Generally speaking, at this level, your net worth will be around 3 to 5 million, passive income of 100 to 200 grand plus annually, estate planning sorted. You might even have a philanthropic strategy that you're doing. You're working because you want to on a project that you're passionate about, certainly not because you need to. But here's what most people don't realize, right? And this catches everyone out. There is one psychological trap that sabotages all of this, even if you're not aware of it. I'm serious. And I was a victim of this myself. I lost probably, I would say, over 100 grand or more without realizing it was happening, which is why I really think you need to watch this video here next. It's about decision making and giving every pound a job. And if you don't understand this, everything I've just showed you won't work. So give it a click and I'll break down why your brain wants to make you lose money and what you can do to stop it. See you there.